Welcome, all fellow wannabes. Welcome to the show. You are listening to the Wannabe Critic podcast. It is not the main cast. We've decided that we're not going to call this show the Off Week anymore. We don't know what we're going to call it, and that's fine. It's going to get a name. All you need to know, and that is that this is the show that features me, Rex, and Ryan, and Mikey and Caleb couldn't make it today. God rest their souls. They've passed on. They've moved on until next time. But no, it's us three. We're here. We're talking about a movie that is very, I would say, underrated. We're going to be reviewing the 1999 cult classic Mystery Men. Gentlemen, it's good to see you. Rex, how you feeling, bro?
I'm feeling pretty good. I don't know what else to say to that.
Feeling lit, feeling light, 2 a.m. Friday night.
Exactly. That's exactly how I'm feeling.
Nice. Ryan, how you feeling, bro?
Good. Ready to geek out. I loved this movie when it came out. I loved it when I just watched it again. And hey, I wonder if you could, maybe the audience could give us suggestions for the off-week shows, like for the name.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good idea. So if you have any suggestions as to what you would like us to call this particular segment, right? Because this is technically an offshoot of the main Wannabe Critic podcast, right? But we don't want to call it. It needs to be differentiated, because then if you listen to the Wannabe Critic podcast, you're like, well, where's so-and-so? Like, it's only Ryan and Rex here today. So we need to find out the right name to give this particular segment, because, you know, it's a little bit different than what we usually do, just a little bit though. So, and I'm right there with you, Ryan. I grew up on this movie, which I think is kind of weird. Like, I don't know if many kids did. Like, Rex is a few years older than me, but he had never seen it until tonight, or whenever he watched it.
And I love Ben Stiller. Like, I've seen it. I grew up on Ben Stiller movies pretty much. Like,
yeah,
Zoolander's like my all-time favorite movie, and you know, I just love all of his movies. But I've never seen this one. So.
Yeah, there's so many things that whenever I saw it in the movie, I kind of, without realizing it, there's so many things that I quote from this movie, or like gestures that I make from this movie. Like, between me and Mikey especially, like, there's sometimes we'll be playing a game and one of us goes, just junk it now. Like the lady in the junkyard. Oh my God.
Me and a friend of mine will just randomly put in conversations, I'm not Stab Man.
I'm not knife people. I'm the Blue Raja. Oh my God. It's so funny. Yeah, I can't wait to talk about it. We're going to save that towards the end of the show. But before we get into it, we'll get into our review of Mystery Men. Wanted to do a little bit of a catch up. Rex, I want to throw it to you, man. What have you been up to recently?
Gee, not too much. Just been on the grind. Just, yeah, not doing too much. You know what I have done?
What?
I installed Fortnite and I played a couple games last night.
And did you enjoy
I
it?
actually had fun. I had fun. And I was streaming, as you saw yesterday. I was streaming and Valorant, which I haven't played in a while too. So I've just been bored. I'm like, okay, I got to bring back some old games. So I streamed Valorant, Rocket League, and Fortnite yesterday. And it was funny because I was playing Fortnite with my cousin. And this guy like joins our streams, like, hey, let's play. Like, just some random guy, some kid. And so we joined up, and we had like too many people. We had 5. And it was these 2 young kids. They're like 16. They're like, all right, 2v3 us. He wanted to 2v3. And we're like, yeah, that's cool, whatever. And so we did the custom map. There's like a map where it's like just one room and you just build and try and take each other out.
Right.
And yeah, they got destroyed, and it was pretty funny.
They got destroyed?
Yeah.
Really? That's pretty funny. So is your cousin like a master builder or something?
Him and his friend are like really good.
God tier, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. And I was just like, I hadn't played in a year. I was just like struggling to do anything. And but I still had fun. It was cool. We got like 3rd, I think. We played like 1 squad game, and my Valorant games did not go well, but that game's pretty fun too.
Yeah, I dabbled a little bit in Valorant whenever I first got my PC, and I was just like, God, like it's hard,
It,
and not being able to use a controller. Really, I'm sure there's a workaround to be able to do it, but I don't like keyboard and mouse, that much. I just want to play on a controller all the time. Um, that's pretty cool
it's
about Fortnite, though.
yeah, Valorant. It's a harder game. It's more like competitive, and the shooting is really hard to control
Yeah,
and all that stuff. But I
it's really
really like
like if Overwatch and CS:GO had a baby, basically.
exactly. Yeah,
So which is fine. But that's cool about Fortnite. I'm secretly, the theme for this season is primal, right? And I think I will bet you each $1 that at some point during this season, Aloy from Horizon Zero Dawn shows up.
totally.
I think it's inevitable at this point, especially with the amount of money that Sony has dumped into Fortnite over the past couple years. I think I saw last year they dumped like $250 million into Epic so we'll see what happens. But they added Kratos. I think it's going to happen. It'll be
I
rad if
was
it would happen.
surprised coming back to Fortnite. It's a totally different game from when I was playing,
Yeah.
and I was pleasantly surprised with all the changes and even the graphics and the
Yeah.
whole intro like thing you do looked really good. And
Yeah.
just like crafting guns now, which is interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
yeah,
excited to see where it goes for sure. But that's cool though. Look out for Rex on stream. He's a streamy boy now. Maybe he'll start. Maybe I'll make him start streaming for Wannabe Critic Productions. We'll see what happens.
definitely.
That'd be cool. I was, once upon a time we had someone that was going to stream for us, but he bowed out. He chickened out because he's a wuss. He was going to be our dedicated
really?
streamer. He could be making millions right now. No, I'm just kidding. Ryan, what have you been up to?
Well, this week, in fact, just yesterday, I got the first concept art, at least for the front and back cover of my book that's coming out next spring. Just like the first pass of the artist, and yeah, they handed me a few different iterations, and we got to talk about what works, what doesn't, and everything, and they'll take that back to the artist, and yeah, so that's exciting to take a first step for that.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's kind of sometimes I forget. It's like we have like a writer, like an author on the like as a part of our podcast, which is really cool. So I feel like we can. I don't want to be told. I feel like it's good to have Ryan on to talk about how great a story is until he says that a story that I like isn't good. You know what I
Well,
mean? So
sometimes my reaction to things will be, sometimes I'll think it's not good. Other times I won't have a criticism except that it's just not for me.
yeah, no, I hear
It's
that.
like when Ryan says it's not good, you like double think, okay, maybe I should change.
But me being me, I'll be like, no, dude, I still like it.
I don't even try to be that way. I just, when I end up debating about stuff, I just kind of lay out my thoughts. I had one friend who loved The Force Awakens, which I don't hate. But we started talking about it, and I just started laying out to me what seemed like all the logical problems and inconsistencies and things, and just more as like a writing exercise. And by the end of it, he said, "Oh man, I wish I hadn't talked to you. You made me hate it." I was like, that wasn't my goal. I was just talking about the story.
I think too, yeah. Well, we should have like a big. I think Rex at one point wanted to talk about the sequel trilogy, and I think we'll be able to dig into those topics and those ideas and stuff a lot more towards the end of the year whenever we go back through the Skywalker saga for review.
Summer, right?
Yeah, this summer it's gonna happen. Hopefully, it depends because we have like 5 Mission Impossible movies to get through, so it'll probably start this summer and carry us through the rest of the year. So we'll see what happens. That's cool though. Yeah, that's really cool that you've been busy with you've been getting stuff done for your book. We were kind of talking off mic. You said you had hopped back into, I don't know if I'm able to.
Right.
Yeah. So
yeah, Destiny 2, I think I'd mentioned that on our last episode, and I'm still just kind of dabbling. I don't have loads of time, but I continue to enjoy it. In fact, when we're done here, I'll probably go play a little bit more, and it looks great, it plays great, and I just feel like it's matured into like such a much better game than I expected, like when the original Destiny came out. And I'm impressed with how they poured so much effort into making it better.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think about too, like some of the key players that worked on something like Forsaken, they aren't even there anymore. which is kind of weird to think about, you know? So it makes me wonder, like each time the game feels different, it makes me wonder like how many recycled teams basically like how many new teams have come in to change it, you know, and or how many new people have made key decisions. And to where now me and Jace were talking about this. We're like, yeah, man, like, you know, like Halo Reach was basically like prototype Destiny. And then we started talking about, it's like, yeah, but it's not even really like the same people that are there anymore. Like tons of new people have come in. And whenever you have a property as such as big as Destiny, you know, I think that they have to constantly kind of shake it up and make it feel different. But I'm kind of on the same wavelength as you. Like what I've been playing, I've been really enjoying. 2 seasons ago, or no, yeah, 2 seasons ago, I was like, okay, this is the game that I'm going to be playing like consistently, unless they do something that just really pisses me off, which hasn't happened yet. But I feel like, yeah, I mean, I feel like it's getting closer and closer to being the definitive like World of Warcraft on console, you know, and PC, you know, especially whenever crossplay shows up, it's going to be insane. So
yeah, I'm real impressed. Have you talked about on the show, and if you have, we can just cut this part out, about kind of the newer dust up about Marvel's Avengers and what they did with the level progression?
we haven't really talked about it on the show.
If you don't want to, it's fine.
No, I'm down because they, you know, Square Enix just they just had their event today actually, and kind of announced some new milestones and stuff for the game. And I did pick it back up whenever it was on sale. I picked up for like $25 or something like that. So I was like, I'll give it another chance. And I'm glad I did, because now Black Panther's coming out, you know, Clint is coming. There's a bunch of new things they're adding, you know, adding. There's a bunch of new things that they're adding to, you know, to make the game more enjoyable. But yeah, are you referring to like a couple weeks ago when they put out that statement and they're like,
yeah,
yes,
why would you make it even harder?
Yeah.
Why would you make it even grindier when that's the absolute worst part of the game? It just baffles me.
Yeah, I don't really. I think that's kind of the biggest question right now with the bit. But now with all these new things set in place, I think essentially whenever you add like another layer of currency, essentially, because that's kind of in terms of how I think about it, is like essentially they're adding another wall to get the thing that you want. You know, Destiny does that all the time. Like, oh, if you want to get this weapon, you got to go complete this quest steps that give you these, you know, this loot that makes that you can trade for this thing, and then that's one step done, and you keep doing that over and over. Like, you know, kind of like they with the Umbral Umbral engrams right now, or whatever they're called, like the dirty engrams that you can take to the prismatic recaster for this season. It kind of reminds me of that in a way. I still think the game is so much in its infancy still that they're just trying to figure out the best way to communicate what they are trying to do. I think they have a pretty clear idea of where they want the game to be, but whenever you put something on paper, it's going to change so much. And I mean, I think with this new thing that they're putting out, this is kind of their second chance, probably second and last chance for the majority of players. If they miss it here, it's probably over for that game for the most part. But you know, they probably
Destiny. That's kind of what I'm expecting. There's another Destiny.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Not Destiny. Sorry, I said the wrong word.
Anthem.
Another Anthem. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, is I think whenever you take a community's like qualms basically into consideration, you actually act on it. That's something that Bungie does all the time. Like, oh, you don't like sunsetting? All right, well, we're done. Like, we're going to take it out of the game because, you know, you don't like it. Like, oh, we want to listen to you. The majority of you hate this thing. That's where I would like to see Crystal Dynamics get to. And I do think it comes into the thing of they are still trying to figure out how they can give the best experience to the players, because whenever you have a game like this, you just don't know how it's going to, you know, affect the meta. Basically, you don't know how people are going to react to it because you've only had 30 or 40 people playing it at a time. So, you know, it'll be interesting. And the more people you add to a game like that, the more it changes. So I'll be interested to see what happens, but I'm kind of in the same boat of you. I'm like, well, why would you make it harder? You know, why would you make the game already harder, especially once there's no end game? Maybe they were just basically giving it to the people who already had most of the end game finished. I don't know. Hopefully it amounts to something, and it's
not even like harder though, but grindier. That's
just longer. The only thing I could think is whenever something like that happens and they come out with some very PR explanation, is that there's some way that they're using this to make more money. That's all I can guess.
Yeah. which is probably true. I mean, maybe they're just trying to milk it dry until until it does become the next Anthem. It's like, JK, this is it. Hope you liked Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. But we'll see. I could see it going either way, honestly, where the next year, the next 6 months, 6 to 8 months roll by, and it's had like a No Man's Sky level resurgence. I could also see it just continuing to dig deeper into the pit of irrelevance at this point. But I will hop in, I'll play and dabble. It's fun. That's the thing. That's the frustrating thing. Anthem made no freaking sense, right? And it was just bad. Like for when I play, I'm like, yeah, this is kind of cool. But there's things in Avengers that's really fun. Like playing like the Hulk, you're like, oh my god, like and Thor too. Like you think we have an idea of how the Avengers should be because of the movies we watched, but this gets really close, and just all the customization you can do on each character is pretty rad. So I don't know. I'm willing to give it another chance and see what happens. And I keep coming back to Destiny. So go ahead, Rex.
That's it's like a top-down RPG game, right?
It's like third person.
Third person.
Yeah, so it's like third person.
Like, Diablo, Path to Exile, that sort of game.
No. That's
No,
Ultimate.
no.
That's Ultimate Alliance. You're thinking of. This is This is like imagine like basically like God of War gameplay, like
okay.
Assassin's
I thought
Creed,
for some
like
reason I thought it was a dungeon crawler.
No. That's Ultimate Alliance is kind of dungeon crawler esque, but yeah, you should watch some footage on it. It looks great, but who knows? And that was one thing we were going to talk about today a little bit was, for the news was the Square Enix type stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it all pans out, and hopefully it pans out for the better. I don't know. I want the game to be fun, and it'd be nice to get that same Destiny feeling from a game without having to grind in Destiny. So, there's that.
I would just love to have I would just love to have a well done superhero game. There aren't that many outside of Spider-Man.
Yeah, no, it's true.
And Batman.
Yeah, Spider-Man and Batman. Like what else is there really? And Infamous. I mean, Infamous is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
although playing God of War made me think, man, if you took this level of like godlike strength and applied it to a Superman game, it would be the greatest game on earth.
Yeah,
but
it'd be so much fun.
It baffles me like why people haven't done like certain ideas like that and just putting the time into it, because really all it takes is just some extra time and a big company to come in and do it right.
Yeah,
but
and money.
No one ever takes it on, or no one wants to do it.
Well, I think a lot of times when it doesn't work once, they use that as a way to say, oh, fans don't like it. Like, well, it's the same reason that certain movies don't get done or TV shows don't get done. It's like they'll point to another thing and be like, look, fans don't like this thing, when really it is, no, fans don't like it when it's done poorly.
Yeah,
but it's like sometimes they can't tell the difference.
Well, I think I think every studio, every developer nobody wants to be the developer. It's like, oh my god, they freaking ruined Avengers, you know what I mean? But whenever you're a relatively, I don't want to say unknown developer, people, I would say the common person doesn't even know what games Crystal Dynamics has even made. You know what I mean? So to them, it's kind of one of those things like, well, I don't want to be known as the developer who messed up the Avengers game. And whenever you go into it and you take on those projects, I think there is kind of a weight of, we better not mess this up. So whenever you have that attitude, and maybe, especially whenever it's an idea you've never really tampered with before, then I think it does become harder. It becomes harder on you as the developer to hold yourself to that standard, because it's like, well, there's a lot of things being expected of us. And here's the thing, like the story of Avengers, what I had played, I think I had gotten through a little over half of it before I quit, is awesome. It's a lot of fun, but it's after that it gets a little dicey, in the end game, to where it's like, okay, why should I squat up with someone every night, and go do this thing? So, but yeah, I'm with you, Ryan. I want a well done superhero game all around that isn't Spider-Man or Batman,
Mm-hmm.
So there's that. In other news, it was announced today that Sony has acquired the fighting game mogul championship, whatever you want to call it, event, Evo. Our resident fighting game expert, Rex Tucker. Rex, what do you make of this?
I'm very interested to see. I don't really know why they're buying it, but is it they want to control that type of market with fighting games in general? Um, what's the play here? Are they just getting it to start getting into esports, that sort of thing? Um, I don't really understand it, but I mean, I'm happy for Evo, like to get a big, someone like Sony to step in and, you know, handle it right. And because there's always issues at those big tournaments, there's always, different issues. And I think Sony could really step it up and take it to the next level. So it's exciting to me because I think the FGC kind of needs that right now because they're, I don't know, to me, it seems like the FGC has been going down like
Yeah.
since COVID. You can't, it's all about meeting up and playing people in person, and online fighting games just kind of they're not the best, with the net code and stuff. So it's really interesting, and I think it's great for the FGC in general.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan, what do you make of it?
I don't hardly know anything about this whole arena, so I'm going to sit back and listen to the experts.
Yeah, no, I was thinking about this. I was kind of in the same boat as Rex. I was thinking about this and I was like, why? Why would you do that? And the first thing that came to mind right after I was thinking about that was there's a lot of money in Evo. There's quite a bit of money. And I see it as an opportunity. I think there's still a pretty big Street Fighter 5 community, which is at this point in time, it's still PlayStation, PlayStation only. So I don't know, if I'm Sony, I'm thinking of potential opportunities to really showcase that particular game, maybe give that some extra attention in some way. There's a lot of revenue that can be brought in from that game. I mean,
One of the
Ryu,
better online fighting games too, like with the net code and everything.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, whenever they put Ryu and Chun-Li in Fortnite as viable skins, I mean, that's pretty huge. So to me, it makes that I mean, it's a weird thing, but it's like I wonder how many millions of dollars they made, or I guess Capcom probably. I don't know. I don't know how the rights all work with that, but it would make sense to see Sony get a huge return in some way to kind of showcase Street Fighter 5 inside of Evo, give that some special attention and stuff like that. But outside of that, they already said that they're going to allow other platforms, into like other games like Melee. I think Melee might come back. As well,
I think everyone wants Melee to come back.
Yeah, I think Melee is kind of the show stealer, right? And
yeah, it's always been the show stealer, and I think recently Street Fighter has been contending pretty well just because of how much backing it got with the the prize money, and the name. I guess everyone loves Street Fighter. I grew up on Street Fighter, so yeah. Maybe they're gonna do a Street Fighter 6. I don't know.
A Street Fighter 6 PlayStation only, that'd be kind of wild.
That would be wild.
The fact that Street Fighter 5 is PlayStation only is kind of crazy. Like the more you think about it. And I guess it hadn't really, 3 or 4 years ago, it really didn't make that much of a difference to me. But now that I'm a little more savvy in terms of how things work, that's a huge IP to have exclusive to PlayStation. The fighting game community is so big, and that has such a pedigree. That particular title in general has such a pedigree with the fighting game community. So basically, it's like if you want to play Street Fighter, you got to buy a PlayStation.
And at the tournaments, I believe when Street Fighter 5 first came out, I think they had to run it on like PlayStations too. So
yeah, makes sense. So that was another news beat. There was one other thing we were going to talk about today, but I forgot what it was. Do you guys remember? We talked about Square Enix already. We talked about Sony acquiring Evo. There was another thing, but I can't remember what it was. Something about, if you are a Xbox Game Pass owner, and you are, you're a fan of the Game Pass, and if you have a PC, congratulations. EA Play is now included into your subscription at no additional cost. So it looks like they have a decent selection of games that you can add to Game Pass, and you can download at your leisure and play should you so desire. Xbox
That's
Game
pretty cool.
Pass is absolutely insane. It just continues to dominate. You know what I mean? And you think about whenever Game Pass came out, what was it been like 4 years ago, basically? So get Xbox Game Pass. Xbox Game Pass. Xbox Game
Has it
Pass.
been around that long?
I think it came back, or I think it came out around that time. I'm gonna look up right now. Xbox Game Pass.
I didn't even know about it until last year.
When did Game Pass come out? Holy crap. June 1st, 2017. Xbox Game Pass.
Okay.
So in that time, you think about that time in 2017, Xbox is at that point in time irrelevant in every sense of the word. If you have an Xbox, there is no games. You have third party titles that you're playing on your Xbox. Cool. That's fine. I'm not saying anything bad against Xbox. Xbox was my first love, in terms of like taking games seriously and things like that. But it didn't have anything to offer. So then when Game Pass comes around, it's like, oh, it's like the Netflix for video games, right? Since that time, they literally spent $8 billion acquiring Bethesda. They have all of these games and all of these studios that they've been acquiring over the past 3 years. The amount that Xbox has accomplished in the past 3 years to get everything to where they are now, and basically now Xbox is known as having the best deal in gaming, the best value in gaming on top of EA Play. There's no end in sight for Xbox at this point. Like, it's become the thing of, if you're a gamer and you have a PC, I think I read somewhere Aaron Greenberg said like they would put Game Pass on PlayStation if PlayStation would allow it. Like, they want it on as many boxes as possible. So literally they went from being a company that sells Xboxes and digital software to now they're selling you a subscription service that's nearly accessible pretty much everywhere, and well worth its weight. And if you think about it, also the amount of money they spent just on Xbox stuff in the past 3 years is chump change compared to what they have in cap, to be able to spend. And that's what kind of blows me away. Is Noah saying like basically every other few weeks in additional capital, like they end up having several $1 billion that kind of add up just from Xbox alone. Go ahead, Rex.
Yeah, I think you're right in comparing them to Netflix, kind of. They're like trying to become the Netflix of video gaming. And it's not a bad idea. I mean, look at Netflix. It's a subscription almost everyone has, and you don't even think about it anymore. Of course you have Netflix, right?
Yeah,
If they can
absolutely.
do that with video games, I could see Sony being like the HBO Max. And you got Xbox Game Pass is the Netflix,
Yeah, absolutely.
Stadia is going to be like, I don't know, what's one that failed? I blanked.
No, because Stadia is on its way out, right?
No, Stadia is going to be what, Quibi?
Yeah, Quibi. Oh my God, Stadia is the Quibi of the streaming services, or just of video games in general. But no, and that's the thing too is, I would argue Xbox Game Pass had a better launch than Netflix ever did. Because remember, in the olden days of Netflix, you got your DVDs sent to you in the mail, right? And then it was announced like, okay, digital, like they started uploading stuff and acquiring licenses and doing all this stuff. The amount of games that were available on Game Pass day one, I remember it being like 50 or 60 games that you could play or something like that, which is insane. It's a very similar type of story. And now all these third-party companies are starting to see the value. So it's like, yeah, our game that we released 3 or 4 years ago, that's how it started. Like, yeah, we'll put all the Arkham games on Game Pass. Well, and then a year or two later, yeah, we'll put Red Dead 2 on Game Pass. Remember that blew me away. I'm like, Red Dead is on Game Pass? That game's a year old. Like 1 year old, it's already on Game Pass. So it makes perfect sense that, Xbox is kind of moving along, and more power to them. This whole EA Play thing, having EA games on your Game Pass, is that value is insane in of itself. Go ahead, Ryan.
And that's a great point about putting older games on there. I mean, they could even go deeper into the back catalog and put old favorites, old classics on there. I mean, just to carry forward the comparison, look at what The Office did on Netflix. And I mean, I listened to the Office Ladies podcast with the Jenna Fisher and Angela that you kind of
Yeah.
recap the episodes, and they said like the people who like are the most enthusiastic and recognizing them now are like middle schoolers and high schoolers, because they're all rediscovering the show on streaming services. So you could do the exact same thing for older beloved games.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and just listen. Okay, here, listen to this list. Okay, so for $15 a month, you get this on your PC, your Xbox. You can stream it on the cloud. And I remember a year ago, I'm like, oh, like cloud gaming is never going to take off. Like, I wish I could go punch Gabe from a year ago in the mouth because he's an idiot. Because I never thought it would happen. But if anyone could make it happen, it would be Microsoft. Listen to this: Star Wars Squadrons, Madden 21, Jedi Fallen Order, Titanfall 2, all the Dead Spaces. You have the newest Doom game, which a lot of people love. You have Fallout 4, Skyrim, Prey, Battlefront 2, all Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Elder Scrolls Skyrim, all the Wolfensteins. You know, you have all of these games that Xbox has their stamp on now. Like it's they own those companies. And it's what's even crazier, to add more value to it, first party games come out day one and do not leave Game Pass. That's insane. The new Halo, if you have Game Pass, you'll have it day one. The new Gears DLC, like everything, you'll have it day one. I just don't understand. It's one of those things, like if you even dabble in Xbox at all, like you have to have it. And that's essentially what Xbox has done, is they have made the thing of, if you play our box at all, or if you have a PC, you pretty much have to have this because you're an idiot. If you're basically, they're making it to where, honestly, I question myself anytime I go to spend money on a game now. I'm like, well, it's probably gonna end up on Game Pass, so I'll probably just wait. And that's insane that Xbox has done that. So, do you guys have Game Pass by chance? Go ahead, Rex.
The only thing I will say about it is I think they gotta do a better job with their UI and stuff on PC. I had quite a few issues installing games and having them run smoothly and stuff, and just installing them in general was pain with certain games.
Yeah, the same thing has happened to me as well. But still, though, I mean that trade-off alone, I mean, the trade-off is still pretty good. You know, a little bit of bugginess, but I agree they need to kind of get it worked out. Ryan, do you have Game Pass?
Not yet. I'll probably eventually do it. I'm a little bit older school about some of my media, books, movies, music, and things. I like to own them. You know, I like to pick the thing I want and own it. That's why I don't do a lot of like Spotify or anything like that. I totally recognize how good it is if that's what you want. But yeah, I guess I like to just pick the things I like and have them owned in my library, as opposed to literally being able to reach out and grab everything. Part of it, I think, is a little bit just because kind of that's how I grew up on, which that's what it was the only choice, is to own the things that you wanted. Another part is, I know for me, for music, there's so much music that I enjoy. If I, for a small fee, had access to 50 million songs, I would never stop downloading songs.
Yeah.
So there's so much variety of things I would like. So I'm a little bit overwhelmed by the choice. So not doing that sort of limits me in a way I need. But I know I'm a little bit weird that way.
Well, no, I get it. I get the ownership thing, because I mean, if here's the way I work now, you know, because I review music on one of the, youtube.com/wannabe music reviews, just so you know. And I am the same way of, if I'm listening to to a new album, and I just love it, like I love it, I'm gonna buy it on vinyl, you know, and listen to it that way, and like have the ownership, because then I feel like I have, like, records hold their value for the most part. You know, vinyl holds its value pretty well. And then I feel like I'm giving back to the thing that I love. Plus, at 9 times out of 10, it comes with a digital copy anyways. So I know I have that. Should I ever like if I go super duper poor, I'll know I'll be able to, recoup that somehow. But for me, it's one of those things, like with the games, with the amount of money that I spend on games every year, it makes too much sense. And it's getting to the point to where I don't know if I can justify. Well, I mean, I'll always have a Switch, but it's getting to the point to where I don't want to use my Switch for anything other than first party titles. Because 90% of the games that I end up buying on Switch come to Game Pass. So, whenever I got my Switch, I said I would always buy the first party stuff, and I want to try it all. Like, I want to try all of them basically to see what I like and what I don't like. But man, whenever you can literally just nearly phase out a console almost for hardcore gamers, like that's pretty insane. Whenever you can do that, but I digress about the Nintendo stuff. But no, I get where you're coming from, Ryan. You're old. You're old. Just say it. Just say you're old. Go ahead, Rex.
And I'm kind of like that too, though. Like I have a pretty big, substantial Steam library, and you could technically sell your account and still make some of that money back, with the Game Pass, you can't really do that.
Yeah, you can sell your Steam account.
Yeah, you can sell your Steam account. You can sell your Epic Games account.
Oh, you're saying like literally sell your ID to somebody.
Yeah, you like transfer the account over to them and they take over all your games,
Yeah, in fact, I did sell Rex's Steam account yesterday, and I made a decent amount of money on it. So thanks, Rex.
That's amazing. That's
Don't log in.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But
like, on Epic Games, I've been like getting every single free game like every month since it came out, and I have like 70 something games. Like,
yeah, that's insane. I mean, they gave away Elite Dangerous for free a couple months ago. Like, that's wild. And during like around Christmas time, they were giving a new game every single week. So
yeah,
it's
wow,
every day.
Yeah, they give out during Christmas they gave one. Yeah. They gave one every day. That's right. But either way, it's a win for Xbox. It's another way for them to kind of assert their presence, so to speak. Bring the age of Xbox is coming back. Xbox is coming, at least software wise. I don't think you're going to see Xboxes ever overtake Sony's box ever again. That's not what they're trying to do. All they want is to sell you Game Pass. That's all they want. And they can get you Game Pass on pretty much any platform you want almost. So, if they do that though, they win. They make way more money that way anyways. So there you go. But go Xbox. Go you guys.
The bottom line.
Yeah, it is what it is. Maybe they can make some of that, sweet ZeniMax money back. You know what I mean? All right. It's time now. We've talked enough about the nerd news. We've talked enough about the nerd noise. It's time, before we get into our main review, to give a shout out to our Patreon producers for the month of March. We have Emma Fast. I love my wife. She's super supportive. We also have H.H. Waxbar, Zoe Chanel, and Luke Collins for the month of March. If you want to go over to patreon.com and get your name read just like our other producers, you can go to patreon.com/wannabecritic, and you can subscribe at that tier, and then that's how you do it. You'll be supporting the show. You'll get access to, or you get early access. You get a request you can put out each month, from something from myself, since, as of right now, it's kind of just me over there doing stuff. If we end up making more money, in the future, there'll be opportunities for, the other wannabes to be a part of projects as well. But as of right now, I'm all you need. There's enough Gabe to go around for as many slots as there are. There's only 10 slots at the request tier and the producer tier. So there's that. Also, shout out to Pop Cult USA, Raise Energy, and man, I'm still waiting to hear back on this third one. I know we have it for sure. I'm waiting for him to send me a code. Is all I'm waiting for. It's gonna be rad though. Once we have it, we'll be able to give some sweet deals on some more merch and stuff like that. So, anyways, tonight's main event, we are talking. Oh, and one other thing. There's new wannabe merch. It'll be in the description down below. This is what I like to call faculty. I think this is either number 1 or number 0. I made 2 different designs, so you can go check that out too. They're cool shirts. I'm pretty proud of myself. I felt all artistic whenever I did it. So there's that. Now the main event. So sorry. We are talking about Mystery Men from 1999, starring Ben Stiller, William H. Macy, Paul Rubens, Greg Kinnear, Jeffrey Rush, and Hank Azaria, And am I missing anybody else? Really, that's big name. Am I missing anyone?
Only Claire Forlani, because I like Claire Forlani, so I'll mention her.
Claire Forlani. Now, who does she play?
She plays the girl that Ben Stiller falls for.
Oh yeah, she's a cutie. Yeah, she's definitely I have a crush on her as well. I've always had a crush on her ever since I was a kid. Came out in 1999. We were kind of talking about how this was before kind of all the superhero movies. The only really superhero movies you had out around that time, of course, you had like the 60s Batman, the Superman movies and stuff like that. But in terms of like stylized, high budget production, superhero movies, you didn't really have anything. All you had was Joel Schumacher's Batman. X-Men hadn't come out yet, which I found really surprising. X-Men hadn't come out yet. Spider-Man hadn't come out yet, which was kind of surprising to me, because from the very beginning, I'm like, oh, they totally ripped off X-Men here. Whenever like the thunder, like the lightning and just the big like chrome letters come in, from the credits and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, they totally ripped off X-Men. But then I was like, wait a minute. Did a quick IMDb check. 1999. Am I crazy? Before we get into the main discussion, I want to throw this. Was this movie ahead of its time?
In certain ways. In other ways, you like the aesthetically, and in some of the deliberate campiness, you could definitely see it poking at the Joel Schumacher Batman movies.
Yeah,
the city,
totally.
city design, the level of the ridiculous costumes, even like the kind of the neon lighting, you could tell we're very much sending up those silly movies.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Rex? Do you think this movie was ahead of its time in some ways?
Yeah, I agree with Ryan. Like in some ways, yes. In other ways, no, maybe. It does feel like, to me, it felt like the classic, like Ben Stiller movie, like dumb, stupid humor.
Yeah.
Like I'm a fan of Zoolander, and I feel like you get that kind of comedy throughout it. And when the initial scene on this movie, I thought I was like high or something, or on drugs, because you come into that party of like old people, and I'm like, what is this? What is going on?
You know what? I love that though, because it so effectively tells you, buckle up, this is going to be weird.
Yeah, exactly. And I do like that about it. So.
Well, and I was just, I'm watching this, and it's weird, right? Because I was listening to Rex's, Rex and Caleb have a review coming out at the end of this month, and another one coming out at the end of next month. I was listening to their Goonies review, which is going to come out at the end of April, and Rex said that you kind of, whenever you're doing this podcast, you're kind of looking for things a little bit more. Like you kind of put on a different set of glasses to watch this. And in that beginning scene, there's a lot of action going on where I was like, wow, like that was kind of cool how they did that. Like there's a point where like he kicks the speaker down, and it like shatters glass to make it look like the camera got busted, right? And it's like simple camera effects, like you just put the camera behind the glass and the glass shatters, yada yada. But just like the whole feeling of it was like classic superhero in a way. And I was like, this shouldn't work really, but it does. And I think it kind of is executed well. And it's frustrating because I'm watching this movie and it felt like reading a comic book in a way, like very comic booky, in my opinion. Like I could see it totally being a comic book story. And I felt like there could have been times where, and it honestly kind of reminded me of watching an anime a little bit. Cause like you kind of have like this campiness throughout the entire thing, but then every once in a while, like there's this baller moment in the episode or in the show where you're like, oh my God, like that was freaking amazing. And I just feel like we never got that in this movie, and it would have made it a million times better had we gotten something like that. Go ahead, Rex.
I was just gonna say, I think saying it's like a Ben Stiller type of movie was wrong. But more in the 90s, where you get that just this vibe of how they made movies. And you remember like the Mario Brother movies?
Oh man. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And just like certain 90s movies, like I got the same vibes. Like this is definitely in the 90s. And it felt like that kind of world. It gave me some type of 90s vibe that I really liked.
it reminded me of like me and Ryan were talking. It was like very like PS1 feeling, like cutscene, like Midgar, Final Fantasy VII, like coming in on top of the city, and it's like, where
Yeah.
are we? And really, really tribute. But I have to say, I think coming in on the city like that and kind of like seeing the overview and seeing the skyline, I thought it looked really good for the time that it came out in.
For its time, yeah, it was pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
only now through the lens of 20 plus years that you can see, the really kind of entry level CGI. But yeah,
yeah.
for its time, it was pretty good.
Yeah, when I think about like the end of the movie too, and they're all running away from the exploding mansion, and you can see it's like, oh, that's obviously like a green screen, but like 20 years ago, it'd have been like, oh my god, you know what I mean? But
Look at
no,
the graph.
yeah, I want to talk about this movie though, and the director of this movie. This is something kind of funny. I want to just some fun facts for you. Kinka Usher, who is an award-winning commercial maker, commercial director, is the director for this movie, which makes a lot of sense in terms of its theatrics and its cuts and like certain choices that were made. And after this movie was made, he said that he could not wait to get back to making commercials because he didn't want to have to deal with all this, movie making nonsense. Like he didn't like making movies. He wanted to just do like these really cool one and done, like 1 minute commercials, right? And make it like really cool. And that was his forte. Neil Cuthbert, I've never heard of this guy, wrote the screenplay.
He wrote like 4 campy movies and then disappeared.
Yeah, so he wrote Mystery Men, The Adventures of Pluto Nash, Hocus Pocus, and that's basically it. So, or wait, is it Hocus Pocus? Yeah, it's Hocus Pocus. So yeah, I mean, it's insane though, because 2 people I had never heard of. I was like, Kinka Usher. For the longest time, I thought Ben Stiller directed this movie. I'm like, Kinka Usher, who is that guy? And just he's a if you go follow him on Twitter, he has 200 Twitter followers. Like he's not even on Twitter that much. So it's kind of crazy to think like, how could you have made a movie like this that seemed pretty high budget for the time? And I had that pulled up before I turned my phone off because I'm a freaking idiot.
I'm actually very curious what the budget was because it simultaneously looked expensive and cheap.
Yeah,
And I mean that in like a fun way, not in like a critical way. Just like
sure.
Yeah. So I'm very curious what the number was.
Take a guess.
50 million.
Uh,
Wait, 99. I don't know, 75 million.
Which one is it? You can only pick one.
I'll just pick 50. I'm probably
Okay,
wrong. But
all
I'll
right.
pick 50.
Rex.
30.
Okay, budget was 68 million.
Huh.
Box office was 33 million.
Oh,
ouch.
Well, the tough thing about this is the kind of movie that would go to streaming now, because in streaming it would find an audience.
Totally, but it's
yeah,
not. You can't find it anywhere on streaming. I had to rent it.
But if that kind of thing came out now, it would go to streaming and it would get a cult following.
Yeah,
they would in some way or another make their money back or at least break even. But yeah, back in those days, if you couldn't make an impression in the theaters within a month, you were sunk.
Yeah, which is kind of sad because I love what you said, Ryan, about how does this look like good and cheap? Like the opening scene, it's like, wow, we're really in for something, aren't we? But then I think about like the tornado can, whenever Paul Rubens is like, in the tornado, like that looked bad back then, I don't know. I'm really interested to talk about this. Go ahead, Rex.
I think this movie's not for everyone too, and that probably did not help it. A lot of people don't like stupid humor, and that's what a lot of it is. So
go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, and I think especially in 99, you had a very small group of people who would recognize what the movie was doing, who would have the cultural references to know what it was lampooning and what it was kind of doing shout outs to. And if you don't have that base like reference already, then there's probably not a lot to latch onto, because that movie grew out of like as a response to some of the really bad 90s movies that were not trying to be bad or campy, but it ended up that way.
Go ahead, Rex.
I was just going to ask Ryan, would you say like it works better now?
I think now you would have more people who would appreciate it, because now the average person at least has, like the average moviegoer or movie fan at least probably has a passing knowledge of like superhero tropes and like the comic book type things. And so I think they would have more of well, I feel the same thing about Watchmen. I think Watchmen would do better now. Because I think then you didn't, when it came out, the same thing. You didn't have as many people realize, oh, this is sort of deconstructing or being sort of a commentary on the whole comic book superhero genre. I mean, it went about it a much different way than Mystery Men, but yeah, I think at the very least it would have a very enthusiastic cult following now.
I think about like the past 15 years where, you know, like I said, whenever I used to watch this movie as a kid, I wasn't really a big Marvel fan until 2015. So, Marvel movie fan. So, to me, this movie was just kind of always like, whatever, it's stupid. But now you look at it through the lens of like what kind of the precedent is, you know, through the precedent of what the Marvel movies have set, basically. And there's a couple of things that like I really want to talk about that I think this movie definitely is underrated, like highly. So I want to ask the question: do we like this movie? Yes or no? I'm gonna throw it to you, Rex, first. Do you like this movie?
Yes, I like this movie. I wasn't sure after when the first scene started and I saw them throwing forks and spoons and
You threw a spoon at the guy, Jeff.
Would it kill you to throw a knife?
Yeah, I'm not stabby man. I'm not knifey boy.
The guy has a shovel, and yeah, I was not sure going into this. I was like, "What am I watching?" But it definitely won me over by the end.
Ryan?
Oh yeah, I love it. I loved it when I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I loved it when I watched it again this week.
This movie blew me away this time, honestly, for one simple reason of the performances in this movie are so good, like really good, better than they should be. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, special shout out to that to William H. Macy, the
Yes.
shoveler, who gave every line so earnest and so like his character 100% believed everything he was saying, even in the scene where he was saying how Lance Hunt can't be Captain Amazing because one wears glasses and the other doesn't. You believe that character truly is committed to why they cannot be the same guy. I mean, yeah, he just I am in awe of how he was absolutely my favorite character, and for that reason, because it's like he's so earnest in a movie that is so ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like the line that gets me, just the way he says, I shovel well. I shovel very well.
Yeah, God gave me a gift.
God gave me a gift. And like whenever he goes and like they're fighting those guys on the stairway, and like he hits the guy and like he basically like puts a shovel in front of him, just like pushes him. He was fully committed to that character. And I'm like, even Greg Kinnear as Captain Amazing, I'm like, so good. Go ahead, Ryan.
The shoveler also, I think, had my favorite surprise in the movie, where he's fighting one of those guys and he loses the shovel and the guy swings a club at him and he comes up with the little trowel and blocks. I was like, oh, it's just, that moment was just so genius.
Yeah.
And how it made sense and was ridiculous at the same time.
Especially since the Sphinx was like, how many weapons do you wield? Like, you know, it just goes to show like he evidently thought about that, you know, like before they went into the final battle. Go ahead, Rex.
I think it also goes to show like how much an actor can make or break a film. Like when you have good actors, they can totally just make a film that much better.
Well, and here's the thing too. I think with any good superhero movie, the dynamic is everything. So let's take Avengers for just a second. You have Steve Rogers, right? You have Chris Evans playing Steve Rogers. You have RDJ, right, playing Iron Man / Tony Stark. You have Chris Hemsworth playing Thor. You have all these big personalities that are very good at doing different things, and that kind of clashed in some ways. So in this movie, William H. Macy is our Captain America. Mr. Furious is kind of like our Iron Man. The Spleen, I don't know where he's like Hulk, because it's just so ridiculous the things that he can do. And like also like every character has such a big personality and does what they should be doing so well. It just creates a super interesting dynamic. And I think like they're in the Blue Raja, like he's just such a weird character in general. that dynamic mixed with the villain.
Bowler is Natasha, by the way.
Yeah,
She's
absolutely.
super
Full send.
serious, very capable, surrounded by idiots.
Yeah, let's talk about and that's gonna be one thing because we're gonna have to put on the wannabe critic hat, right, and talk about like, okay, this doesn't make sense, and we're gonna throw it to Ryan as a resident, like why are we doing why are we or why aren't we doing X, Y, and Z? Let's talk about Jeffrey Rush for a second as being one of the most underrated bad guys in a movie ever. He's just so cool in this movie, like just the whole disco dynamic and like the way he talks, and like Eddie Izzard, as the one of the leaders, Tony P, and that whole thing is just so weird. And it just, why does it make sense that the mystery men would be going up against these guys, and like that makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, why does that work? I love the dynamic from all the performances, from the characters, all the different personalities they bring to the table. And then Jeffrey Rush as the main baddie, especially like whenever they confront him in the tunnel and Spleen just sticks his butt in the in the limo. It's like pull, and his like jacket in the back, it just like floats up, you know what I mean? And that whole sequence, I rewound it like 3 times because it's just visually it's so funny. And I love this movie. Like, I think it does not deserve 6.1 on IMDb, in my opinion. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Ryan.
there's a lot of little gems, like in that same scene. Like I love when Mr. Furious, standing on on top of the car, gets himself all mad, but he can't, at the height of his rage, can't even dent it. And then he's just down to trying to pry off the little Corvette symbol on the front. And he can't do that either. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's in that scene, it becomes so apparent that his rage does nothing.
Yeah, he doesn't have any powers.
Yeah, even the guy with the shovel and everything is doing what, caving in the side of the car, and all the rest of them brought something to the table except for him.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, until the very end where it's like, okay, well, anyone can get mad, I guess. I think we've lost Rex. Something happened to Rex, but that's okay. We'll keep talking about him.
He just got up and left.
Yeah, he's like, you guys are idiots. This movie sucks. I'm out. No. I wanted to talk about something since Ryan, we have you right here. I want you to talk about what doesn't make sense. If there's anything that caught your eye as, the writing guru you are, was there anything you were like, why aren't we doing this, or why aren't we doing whatever? Like, do you have anything?
Well, let me think. The beauty of this kind of movie is because they do such a good job at the start of preparing you for something crazy and out there. Even if there's other things, yeah, you can forgive a lot because okay, a lot of the crazy stuff is happening intentionally. So it just kind of, at least for me, kind of dials down the story critic.
Yeah.
Or the story, not even critic, the story just analyzer.
Sure.
Because it does such a good job putting you in the world and immersing you in how crazy it is. There's certain types of stories that if they set it up right, you can have things in that are like, they're this way just because they're this way. And then the credibility they build in the first scene to essentially show you we are on purpose putting you in a world and in a story where anything can be anything and there's no real rhyme or reason. It's just the way this world is. And so that helps you buy into the rest of it because you see that it's done on purpose.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of criticisms. It's even really when you bust it down and like strip away all of the camp, all of the jokes and the silliness and everything, it's actually a pretty decently plotted basic hero's journey.
Yeah.
So they actually do a fairly good job with a core story. They have an arc for the team. They have an arc for some of the individual characters. They have a couple of fun surprises. They have a douchey superhero, which is always fun.
Yeah.
I almost feel like Captain Amazing is like the precursor to Captain Hammer in Dr. Horrible. And I don't have, if I was sitting down and watching it again, scene by scene, I'm sure there's things I could point out, like that could have been better this way or that way. But
right.
I just had a blast with it, so I wasn't really analyzing much.
I was the same way, and I was the same way until the very end. Something caught my eye. I was like, wait a minute. You literally have a girl who has a bowling ball of death, You're telling me she couldn't just send that thing in and have it go, let it have its way inside the building, and just go to town, like, and wreaking havoc and doing whatever it wants. I mean, that's super nitpicky, but I was like, the entire team, like, didn't even have to be there really. She could have just thrown her bowling ball, and just gone to town. But that's super nitpicky.
No, that's true though.
Yeah, but while Rex was away, I just wanted to, kind of put you in a corner, and I'm glad we agree, because I didn't really find this movie's 2 hours long. I mean, that's a lot of our superhero movies nowadays. Like, that's how long they are. But you think about, we have the recruitment period, we have the initial, kind of exposition of the bad guy and why the bad guy's bad, and they do a really good job with that. Everyone gets their fair share of exposition in the movie and has their time to shine. We don't need to know a ton about the spleen, because he does what he's supposed to do while he's on screen. Paul Rubens kills it. We have kind of the underdog character of the Invisible Boy. We want to see him get his redemption. He gets his moment to shine, so to speak. And then it also, in that moment, it's like, oh, there's actually people with superheroes in this world, actually, which was kind of, for all we know, Captain Amazing is just in like a super suit, essentially, which I wanted to talk about him for a second too. Greg Kinnear, or is it Craig Kinnear? It's Greg Kinnear, right? Greg Kinnear as Captain Amazing. You don't see him, he's getting up in years a little bit. You don't really see him in a ton of movies anymore. How do we feel about Greg Kinnear as the poster child, superhero? Like, go ahead, Ryan.
I thought he did a great job. I thought he was simultaneously a choice that, like, when you first see that, like, Greg Kinnear's like essentially the alpha hero, it's an odd choice, but then the way he plays it, so kind of dismissively douchey, is just perfect. And for me, after the first time seeing him, I didn't even think about it really being Greg Kinnear. It was just kind of a douchey superhero.
Yeah, he is Captain Amazing. Like,
he's like everybody else, really inhabits the character. And it's interesting because sometimes you'll find that the directors who come from like commercials and like music videos, a lot of times characterization is their weak point, because they don't have to build characters in kind of their everyday jobs. So it's amazing to me that someone who loves making commercials was so good at not only getting all these actors that could so well inhabit the character, but that he managed to get them all to do it so well. I'm super impressed.
Rex?
I think he was perfect. I think he filled his role pretty well. And I agree with Ryan. I think the director, he probably just had a blast, like, making it. Like, all the actors and stuff probably just had fun with this movie, and that's probably why it came out so good, in my opinion. It's like, if you think about shooting some of these scenes, they were probably like dying laughing,
having a blast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're saying, like, I wonder how many times Ben Stiller had to go like, with that rising camera shot, coming up like that. Like, to me, that's one of the funniest things of the movie is Ben Stiller is 5'0", and he's supposed to be Mr. Furious. Like, okay, whatever. But no, I think the movie does a lot of the cool things. And there was another character that kind of took me by surprise. I'm like, oh yeah, Tom Waits is in this movie as the mad scientist.
Oh yeah.
Which is kind of crazy because, Tom Waits has been in a few movies, but the fact, I don't know if you guys listen to his music, man, I get really burpy. I'm getting really burpy. You know what I mean?
I can't tell.
I'm super burpy. He has some of the weirdest music ever. So, like, to hear him talk about, like, oh, it's a bi-accelerator like he's like speaking another language as to like explaining what these things do and what they are. And I loved how throughout the movie they do that. Like, oh, it's the flux capacitor of the whatever, yada yada. It's like, what is that? But in comic books back in the day, that's how it was. Like, you don't know what it is. Like, that's kind of part of the magic of it was it didn't have to make sense, because it was just part of the effect. But I love Tom Waits in this movie too. And the the moment whenever the blame thrower, he makes non-lethal weapons the first time, he's like, your bad attitude is ruining the scheme, like with the spleen, and just the way the spleen talks in general is just so funny. I wanted to ask like what your guys' favorite moments were. Like what were your favorite scenes in the movie? Like was there any moment that like just made you laugh super duper hard, or you're like, God, that's dumb? Rex, is there anything for you?
Let me go second.
Ryan, do you have one offhand?
Well, I called out the one tiny shovel scene. I really love that. I love Ben Stiller trying to pry at the Corvette symbol and not getting it. I also I like when the waitress asks his name and he keeps trying to come up with with like a really like fictional name to give her as his real name, and she slowly slowly loses interest. You can see in her eyes until he finally admits what his real name is.
Yeah, my name's Roy.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, man, there's a lot of great scenes.
Yeah, like multiple moments where I'm like, this is so stupid, but so funny.
I love that, and I love that no one commented on it in the movie, but I love that Casanova Frankenstein's deadly weapon was a sharpened pinky nail that everyone was terrified of. Just little things like that are great. I would probably name a third of the scenes in the movie if I was going to keep going. I just had a ball with it.
Yeah, I think you can. I think you can with this movie. Like, there's so many good scenes, and for me, I liked the introduction of Spleen, of course, and where he's just like, where he asks about his superpower, and he's like, "Oh, I'm glad you asked."
Yeah, so glad you asked. Yeah, telling the story of like the gypsy and all that stuff. Go ahead, Ryan.
And I called it out briefly before, but the scene where they're debating about who Captain Amazing is. Oh, and I love that when Ben Stiller just like, yeah, it's because Lanson is Captain Amazing, and the other two were like, oh, come on, not this again.
Yeah, he's like takes him off when he transforms.
That doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't be able to see.
Whenever they go to like rescue Captain Amazing, and they're like, William H. Macy is like, Captain, I'm just gonna ask you outright, do you have any connection to Lance Hunt? And he's like, oh,
that's me.
Yeah, and just William's face, he's all like he's in shock, and he has like it looked like two like yogurt lids with like the circles cut out of them. Is what it kind of like. He's like holding it up to like look at it, and that whole sequence was hilarious too, but kind of sad. And it was whenever they actually kill Captain Amazing.
Yeah,
I was like,
that was bold.
I remember whenever I was a kid being like, holy crap, like they killed the guy with powers. Like, how's this gonna and yeah, I mean, and just in a really gruesome, like his eyes are like out here, by the end of it, just super weird.
I was surprised that they killed him. Like, I did not expect that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Rex, did you have a scene in particular that stuck out to you as being like hilarious?
Yeah, so the one with the Spleen, and then the whole thing with the Sphinx, how his wisdom is just saying the reverse of whatever.
Yeah. And whenever Ben Stiller is like, if you do not learn to master your rage, and Ben Stiller's all like, your rage will become your master.
That's what you're gonna say,
wasn't it? You're gonna say, wasn't it? He's like, not entirely, that whole just he's like, why am I wearing the watermelon on my feet? I don't remember telling you to do that.
Yeah. And I really liked like meeting some of the characters like Spleen and Invisible Boy. Like,
whenever you go invisible,
his power,
you just feel it.
You just feel it. Oh my god. I think Spleen is probably my favorite character in the movie, honestly.
I think he makes a lot of the funny scenes just like that much funnier.
Like whenever he gets shot and he's all, oh, what about, are your powers okay? He's like, my powers? Let's check. And they both look behind and he's like, pull. And then he just goes, it'll do. And then, falls over. Just so many moments like that where.
Well, and that's actually preceded by what I thought was, oh, that's actually a pretty clever moment for those henchmen. Those guns are stuck to the magnet. They can't pry them off. But then one of them realizes, oh, I can still fire the gun, even if it's stuck to this magnet.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, that's, for a henchman, that's pretty good reasoning.
I loved how like over the top the villains were. Like, Tony, I want you to call all of my gangs, and like whenever they all show up and like all their different kind of factions, right? Of all this stuff, like, and how he has rapport with all. And they just did a really good job of like building interest in the bad guy. It's like, who is this guy? And like, he hasn't seen these people in 20 years. Excuse me. Like, how does that work? I found it really interesting, I think the spleen and Jeffrey Rush are probably my two favorite parts of this movie, honestly. Go ahead, Rex.
I think it's the type of movie too where like the more you watch it, the more you'll like remember all the scenes, because there's like a lot of little things that are just hilarious.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I've probably seen this maybe 100 times now at this point, like, cause like I said, like I grew up, there was a time period where I always had a DVD in my DVD player, to go to sleep to. Like, that's what I would do. I'd pop in, I'd turn the DVD player on and go to bed. And for like a long time, it was Mystery Men. I had Mystery Men in my DVD player. And so, I mean, I've probably seen that movie, God, I don't know how many times, but I love this movie, and there's things even now, like little camera tricks here and there that I noticed, like the fact that they kind of had like a mild, like fisheye effect on Mr. Furious as the camera's kind of rising, and like, or at least it kind of gave it that effect. I don't know why, but to me, it's just visually appealing. And I think in some ways, that's kind of what I mean whenever I say this movie feels like it's ahead of its time, at least in terms of production and, direction, really, camera work and things like that. I think it does a really good job. And I think it has kind of stood the test of time, 1999.
It's capably directed for sure. And to the point where the things that seem off kilter, you kind of give credit for as probably being intentional.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Was there anything in the movie where we, me and Ryan kind of talked about it briefly, where we were like, oh, I didn't like this? Rex, was there anything for you where you're like, I did not like that?
I can't think of anything offhand. It's just really silly, and it's not the type of movie that I'm like ultra critiquing,
I said the same thing. It kind of, the way it is, it just kind of turns off your critic brain.
Right. And that kind of, I think, helps the movie a lot.
Do you think it changes how you might have viewed it 20 years ago? Do you think you would have viewed it differently 20 years ago had we not had 15, 20 years of Marvel movies?
I think I would have liked it probably even more, because being a kid, I really liked like dumb movies and just silly stuff. So I don't know.
Yeah, I remember loving it in the theaters because I thought it was funny. And at the same time, the production quality, especially for its time, was pretty good. So it was like you got to have a lot of fun with a sort of campy, crazy, on purpose superhero movie that at the same time didn't feel cheaply made, except in the scenes where I think it was supposed to feel that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it is kind of hard to give this movie a score. You know what I mean? Like before we go to score, is there anything that we wanted to talk about that we might have missed? Did I miss anything? Go ahead, Rex.
One of my favorite things about this movie is the premise of them having superpowers, but they're not really superpowers. And like, you really question if they have superpowers at all. But then they do stuff, obviously, that shows that they do have powers.
And like, whenever they give the posers a hard time, they're like, oh, they're posers. Like, there's a lot of, we had a meetup, there'd be a lot of posers, right? It's like, okay, go ahead, Ryan.
And the hyper specificity of some of the powers, like the Sphinx being able to cut guns in half, but apparently nothing else, just guns. because that's the only thing we ever see him cut in half.
That's the only thing we ever see him do.
Yeah, except for speaking his little word puzzles.
Yeah.
But yeah, the specificity of all that is hilarious, and even little moments like the disco guys who, when they're running away, yell out like "Disco's not dead."
Yeah.
All that.
See you later, super losers. Like, yeah, that whole thing. You know, I agree. What do we think of what do we think of whenever they have the meetup, like the tryouts? Go ahead, Ryan.
Some fun cameos in there. Dane Cook plays Waffle Man.
Yep.
Doug Jones, who has done tons of work, like creature work, and is also on Star Trek Discovery now. Played is it Eraserhead or Pencilhead?
Pencilhead. Yeah.
Pencilhead, yeah. So yeah, just a few little I found that scene very fun. And then that's an opportunity to show even more how crazy this world is with no stakes. You can just show other crazy people out there. Like I always crack up at the PMS Avenger that only works every 4 days, and all the Duke guys are afraid of her.
Yeah.
Is there a problem with that? No,
absolutely not. Whatever. Yeah, no, I think there's a lot of creativity like in that scene, honestly. Like no one in that moment, no one in this movie feels like a villain from another universe at all. Like in terms of actual powers, no one actually has anything that's, except for Captain Amazing, but I mean, he has a super suit on, so maybe Iron Man is the most comparable comparison, I would say. But that's
the bowling ball.
Yeah, and the bowling ball being basically Superman. But everyone's, I just really like the creativity, you know, with all of the characters, and I love that. You know, I just love how this movie feels different, but it also feels like it belongs in a way. Like it feels like it belongs into the superhero sphere. You know, it's the underdog. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, and because of the tone and everything, it can be easy to miss how like nicely creative some of the things are. Like the character of the bowler, I've never seen anything quite like that in comics. I mean, there's little elements of her character that you can see pop up in other things, but like her character and like that power with the bowling ball, it all put together, that's not something you're going to see in any other movie.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, is that really her dad in there, or is she just like freak? Like, crazy. Is she a psycho? So yeah, like to me, or dual personalities a little bit. You know, you kind of have there's a lot of questions, and I think we accept what her power really is without really having any exposition on exactly what it is. You know, it's like she's obviously a psychic of some sorts, but I don't care because I buy into the story they're trying to tell me. And I think that's what got me about this movie is they did such a good job of parodying it. They don't even realize they're parodying something that hasn't even really happened yet. I mean, there was a few digs in, you know, from the Batman stuff, but superhero movies did not exist really in the same way. So in a way, it's fun for me to watch this movie now. It's like, oh my God, this totally feels like an Avengers parody in a way, you know, like an MCU parody. Like it does a really good job without even really trying, I think. And part of it is it has simple story, really good performances, and I think it is directed pretty well. One of my favorite scenes is whenever the Invisible Boy and Spleen are looking at the moon, and the skunk.
Oh, yes, I forgot about that.
The skunk comes up, and the Spleen's like, "Is he doing what I think he's doing?" And like, just go with it. Just go with it.
I think that might be my favorite scene.
Oh my God, it's one of the best scenes in the entire movie, and there's just so many funny situational things where it's like you just shake your head and you're like, "What?" Like I don't know. It works in a lot of ways. So, I love this movie. Go ahead, Ryan.
One other little moment that I love is when at the end when Blue Raja's mom gives him her fancy forks, and has that wistful moment. She's like, "I was saving these for your wedding, but I think that's a long way off."
I think that's
And moments like that are hilarious, but they just pass over them. It's like they don't dwell on them or try to milk them. It just comes and goes, and is this great little pop of irony.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And yeah, I don't have a ton more to say. So if we missed anything, like I want to make sure we get to it. Did we get it all, Rex?
I think we got it all.
Are we ready to score this bad boy?
I'm ready.
I'm
Yep.
ready too. I'm ready too. Because I feel like it was like flowing out of me, and now it's like, okay, I'm done now. You know what I mean? So here we are. So for the 1999 cult classic of Mystery Men, what are we feeling the score for this thing? Rex, let's start with you first.
7.
A 7 out of 10. Okay. Any final thoughts you want to add to that?
No, I think that last thing I said about the whole premise of them having superpowers and then they're just being not that great or not that super, really kind of just made the movie for me. So it's a solid movie, and I think it's definitely a solid 7 for sure.
Okay. Right on. Ryan?
I'll give it an 8. Yeah, I loved it. I think, just breaking it down to how I would evaluate a lot of stories, it effectively accomplishes its goal. It does a really good job of getting you there, and it's a lot of fun along the way. Performance is so much better than this movie had any business of having. Yeah, I'm a fan.
I got to go with an 8 as well. I agree with everything you both just said. I was kind of, comparing it to anime a little bit earlier of we have all these campy moments and like all these campy things that are happening, but we never have that moment where it's like one of the characters like goes Super Saiyan type thing. It just kind of keeps its camp the whole way. And I think had we had a moment like that, we would have kind of questioned everything we had just seen a little bit. Like we would have not been expecting a moment like that at all. And I think that is probably the only thing that really could have made this even more of something we would have loved. Go ahead, Rex.
That just reminded me of when Ben Stiller goes off and he's like elbowing him and just like tapping.
Yeah.
That was a Zoolander moment right there.
Totally.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is it knows exactly what it is. It knows exactly what it's trying to do. And I think there's only a couple of things that could have made it better, but I think for the most part, it does a really good job of doing what it's trying to do. So I'm going 8 out of 10 as well. As I said before, this movie has a 6.1 on Rotten Tomatoes, or I'm sorry, a 6.1 on IMDb and a 61% from the critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. Guess what the audience score is?
I'm going to guess it's higher.
Yeah.
I guess 85%.
70.
57%.
Oh, wow.
I know, that's kind of upsetting.
Get it together, audience.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, listen to this. Go ahead, Rex. Sorry.
I think just some people just think it's stupid and they write it off, And
which is sad.
I was thinking about that. Like, there's such cringy, cheesy moments. It's like, do I dock this movie for that, or do I give it a higher score because of that? I truly don't know, and it's just one of those things that's not. It's not for everyone.
That's true.
But it's for me for sure.
Yeah. No, I think if you love comic books and you love comic book stories, I would love to see. This is going to be a really weird comparison, but like in something like the Umbrella Academy, where it's like it's just super weird and like they make a show out of it and like, okay, it's this huge thing. I would love to see like a comic book run of Mystery Men. I think it could be really cool, and to me, I don't know. Like, I think that this had a lot of potential to be something really cool, and it is really cool. I just think they could have totally played off of it and like at least had they totally could have had a sequel, in my opinion. Go ahead, Rex.
And do you think these type of movies like turned into Zoolander, turned into Hot Rod, and those type of comedies, or had an effect on them at all? Like, I can see where they derive some of that.
Oh man, I love Hot Rod.
That'd be a fun one to talk about.
That we ought to do that movie. I love that movie
would be
so much.
One.
I want to do Zoolander too. Like,
I'm down. I love that movie. They're in the computer.
Yeah, I could see this being a precursor to that type of thing.
Yeah,
to me, it felt that way.
Definitely, at least in the same vein. Without, it's just so weird. It feels like the characters all took, like the actors all took their roles so seriously, is what it felt like. Like they totally bought into what they were doing, but it didn't feel like they really had an. It's not like they were preparing for the Avengers. It was just like maybe they just genuinely had a ton of fun doing this. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, and I'll make another comparison, and this will seem weird at first, but I would also put it as a precursor to Napoleon Dynamite. Because if you think about it, that's a movie with very specific characters that are acted very earnestly. It's set in a world that is kind of unknowable and very much its own thing. It's not connected to anything else. It has its own internal logic that doesn't work outside anywhere else, but they make it work in the movie. So in that way, it shares some similarities there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. It's just the only thing of I would say one of the key differences between this and Napoleon Dynamite is people actually went to go see Napoleon Dynamite. I think if you would have had more people go to see this movie, it could have had more potential. I don't know. It feels like, you don't make your money back off this thing in the theaters. Like you said,
maybe that generation just didn't like it. Like,
well, Napoleon Dynamite landed at the right moment, and that's so much of it is timing.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I think if Mystery Men were to come out in theaters today, like be a release today, I think it would kill. Honestly, like I think people would absolutely love it. Kind of like what you were saying about the streaming services. I mean, if there was an event and like marketing around something like this, people would be like, "What?" But now we've had, like I said, we've had all this time for stinking Marvel movies. People would be looking for something kind of like that. I mean, think about something like The Boys, right? Where people absolutely love that show because it kind of takes the superhero thing and like flips it upside down. I feel like this could be kind of a similar thing, but for a way more wider audience, because obviously the Boys is a terrible show and you shouldn't watch it. But you get what I'm saying. I think it would have maybe potentially a similar effect. Go ahead, Rex.
I was even thinking, I get Austin Powers parody type vibes too. Like,
yeah, totally.
And that came out in '97. I just looked at the first one, but
I could see that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you release that today in a similar fashion, that could kind of be a similar type thing. Like, this is the superhero parody, and we don't really have anything like that as of late that's widely acceptable, by a mass audience like that. But anyways, Mystery Men, ladies and gentlemen, go watch it if you haven't watched it. Laugh at Spleen and his powers. It's the best. It's so funny. It makes me laugh every time I see this movie. It's a lot of fun. So, gentlemen, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to podcast with you guys. I love doing this. I love the dynamic that we're able to have, once a month. If you have suggestions of stuff you'd like us to talk about on the podcast, let us know. If you have a name suggestion for something you'd like us to call ourselves, since this is kind of like a side project, and yet it's a project within a project, because not Caleb and Mikey aren't here, right now, but we need a name. So give us some suggestions. We would really appreciate it. But before we go, Rex, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Rex90, WRECKS 90. So follow me on Twitter, and I do the Midnight Run with Gabe, and occasionally I'll stream some games when I feel like it. And yeah.
Also be on the lookout for retro reviews where Rex and Caleb are going to be tackling some movies. At the end of this month, we have Jurassic Park coming out. And then at the end of next month, we have The Goonies. So be on the lookout for that. Ryan, where can people find you?
Ryan Dalton on Twitter, at Ryan Dalton on Instagram. You can find information about my books at ryandaltonwrites.com. Yeah, that's it.
There you have it. As always, you know where to find me. You can follow us on Twitter at Wannabe Critic Productions. On Twitter, you can follow me at the Wannabe Critic. Small thing, I'm giving away from here on out to celebrate, the recent successes of like the Patreon page and things like that, and just we're making a lot of stuff and doing a lot of cool things here. I want to figure out a way to spread the word about Wannabe Critic Productions. So what's the best way to do that? One of the best ways to do that is to do a giveaway. So at the end of each month, I will, in fact, be giving away one vinyl record each month. This month's record, give me 1 second to grab it. Guys, you better freaking vamp for me really fast.
Speaking of vinyls, I just got my Minecraft vinyl in the mail. I bought one of the limited edition, like purple Minecraft vinyls that I think Gabe has. And,
I have this. Oh, sorry, did I interrupt you? Go ahead.
No, that was it.
I have this fantasy of being a vinyl guy where I have a really cool vintage turntable and a cool cabinet where I've got the vinyls, and I know I'll never do it, but I have a fantasy of being that guy that I'll never be.
I have to
Well, it's just
say,
another thing you gotta collect, you know?
yeah,
That's true.
I do have to say I had a crappy table back here, like before that I didn't have room. I was like, God, I'm getting more vinyls. I need a place to do it. So I was like, the crappy table went away and I actually got some shelving. So that's what that situation is right there. This month's vinyl, what I'm going to try and do is, I do this thing where I say, I recommend that you buy, an album on vinyl, in my reviews. It's like, okay, stream it, or, hey, this is worth buying. And I put my money where my mouth is. There's a 10 out of 10 chance that I've actually bought the records that I'm going to be giving away. So I'll be buying 2 copies, one to give away and one to keep for my personal collection. We're always going to try and do a special edition. So this month is going to be the new Kings of Leon record, which is called When You See Yourself. It is a super duper cool album. One of Kings of Leon's best records, if I do say so myself. It has a really cool special edition. This is a cream colored vinyl that basically it only got sent out to local record stores. So, I bought a couple copies off eBay and, I was glad to do that. So I'm always going to try and give away a special edition color of the vinyl. That way, you can feel all special. So be on the lookout for that. Go follow us on Instagram to learn how you can enter for that, because there's a way to get a ton of entries. If you want to check that out, but you know where to find us. Wanna Be Critic Productions on everything. Make sure you check out all the links down below and all the stuff we got going on. We're very busy boys. I'm a very busy boy. So, gentlemen, as always, it's a pleasure. And to you, the audience, thank you so much for tuning in, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I am Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic. Say goodbye, gentlemen.
Bye.
Bye.
You're attractive. Whatever possessed you to check out the podcast or the YouTube channel today, I just want to say thank you so much for doing so. If this is your first time here, I would appreciate it, if you would consider subscribing. As you can tell, it's not just me here anymore. I mean, I do stuff by myself, but the podcast is going to reside here from now on, in video form. So if you want to see more content, if you want to be notified, every time we post something, whether it be a clip, a podcast, a review, an interview, whatever it may be, if it's gaming stuff, make sure you click that bell and hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Thanks for sticking around, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I'm Gabriel Fast. I will always be the wannabe critic.